Ugh, weird title already. Am I wrong for not agreeing to let my husband have a baby with another woman? Man, duh, of course, like what? Why? I, 32 female, am married to a great man, James, 36. He might not be so great if he's trying to get another girl pregnant, but let's get into it. Who is a sperm donor to his friend, Miranda, 35 female, and her wife, Vivian, 30 female. And they have a sweet little boy, and he is a very involved uncle. This all started before I was in the picture, and when I first started dating James, it felt a little weird at times, but grew to accept it because not all families are the same. Also, Miranda and Vivian are great. James and I have been married for a while and trying for a baby. Because of the pandemic, we decided to not actively try again until next year, but are still not using protection. Recently, Miranda approached James about being a donor again. He said that he needed to think about it and consulted me. And to be honest, I told him I was uncomfortable about the idea. Like I said, Miranda and Vivian's son was already in the picture before I came around, so I know I needed to accept it or leave. But now that I am his wife and trying to conceive myself, I just don't think that I can ever handle seeing another woman carry his baby. Very valid point, I agree with you. James understood my stance and suggested Miranda and Vivian find another donor or adopt. They refused, saying that they wanted their son to have a sibling that was related to him, and this time Vivian wanted to experience giving birth. This is... I don't know. I gotta pick my words carefully. This is kind of weird. James still refused, saying that he couldn't do it again. He tried to take all the blame, but I guess they were able to put two and two together and started asking me why I was so against them having a bigger family. I explained my reasons, and they said that I was being unreasonable and how my lack of pregnancy wasn't their fault. I mean, you didn't really make your case even better here. Like, this would make me want to say no even more, but go on. Since then, Miranda and Vivian have restricted access to their son, and I know that is starting to take a toll on James and his family, because their son is technically the only grandchild. I know that my reasons are purely selfish, but am I really in the wrong here? Okay, I take back what I said about your husband. He's a good man. He respected your wishes, and he said no. Vivian and Miranda need an attitude check. They should be appreciative that he gave it to them the first time. Now they want to switch out who wants to get pregnant. Not his problem.
Is it okay that my boyfriend is trying to convince me to let him do the dirty with my cousin? My boyfriend used to be my sneaky link before we made it official. At the beginning, neither of us wanted a relationship, but the more we kept hooking up, the more we wanted to be with each other. So naturally, we hung out all the time, and he asked me to be his girlfriend. And of course, I really wanted him to ask me, but I would never bring it up myself. So when he finally did, I said yes. But here's the thing. My boyfriend asked me if we could have an open relationship when we started. At first, I said no, but then I thought about it some more. If he wants to see other girls and cheat on me, he will. And because of the way we started, I knew what he was like. So I thought to myself, it's probably better to just have an open relationship than to be wondering if he's cheating on me. So after a few weeks of me asking him, I said yes. But I laid down some rules. If he was gonna hook up with somebody else, he needed to tell me. He kept telling me that it was better to just not talk about it, but I told him I wanted to know the truth. A few months into the relationship, everything was fine. According to him, he was not hooking up with anybody. And I know that I wasn't either, even though the option was there if we both wanted to. This is around the time that my cousin came home to visit from college. Growing up, everyone thought that her and I were identical twins. We really do look so much alike. We both have the same exact body type, really similar features. We both have long black hair, and we even dress the same. So it's natural that people thought we were sisters. I told my cousin about my boyfriend and she wanted to meet him. So I had a dinner at my place. As soon as my boyfriend saw her, he basically started drooling. It made me so angry, but I had to keep my cool. Throughout the dinner, my boyfriend kept complimenting her. He talked about how much her and I looked alike and how it would be any guy's fantasy to watch us do it. My cousin was super uncomfortable, so I asked him to stop doing that. Part 2 is it okay that my boyfriend is trying to convince me to let him do the dirty with my cousin? Because we have an open relationship, he feels like he can do certain things in front of me. For example, like flirting with other women in front of me. While we were having dinner with my cousin who was visiting, he kept making comments about how hot she was and how her and I look exactly like twins. My cousin was clearly super uncomfortable, so I asked him to stop, which he did. That's when my boyfriend dragged me into our bedroom and asked me if he could do it with her. I said absolutely not. One of the rules in our open relationship is that we can't choose anybody we already know. He told me that he technically did not know my cousin. I told him family was off limits. He asked me to think about it. I drove my cousin home, and that's when she told me that my boyfriend was really hot. And I was shocked. I thought she was uncomfortable at dinner. I pulled the car over and asked her if she was interested in him. That's when she said she overheard our conversation. Yep, she heard when my boyfriend was asking me if he could do it with her. She started to laugh and told me that it was okay, and that she wouldn't tell my parents. Then she told me that an open relationship is always a bad idea, and that nothing good will come of it. I asked her again if she was interested in him, and she said maybe. She says, you should just let us do it. Part 3 is up. Is it okay that my boyfriend is trying to convince me to let him hook up with my cousin? That's when my cousin tells me you should just let us do it. I looked over at her and I said, are you crazy? And she said, if you guys already have an open relationship, what's the difference? I told her I wasn't going to be comfortable with her and my boyfriend doing it, and that she needed to get that idea out of her head. And she started trying to do reverse psychology on me. She said if I didn't let them do it, that he was going to eventually resent me, and that he would see me as the bad guy, and that he'd probably start looking for other girls. I could not believe that my own cousin was trying to do that to me. I started to cry and I asked her if she loved me at all. She then hugged me and says, of course I love you. This is the best thing for your relationship. relationship. Part of me started to actually believe what she was saying. I thought maybe he will resent me if I don't let them do it. After that, I didn't talk to my cousin for a few days. During that time, all my boyfriend did was ask me if he could see her again. I made the mistake of telling him that my cousin was down, and then he started pushing even more. He promised me he would only do it with her once, and that nothing would change between him and I. Here's the other thing. There's a guy who's always asked me out on dates, but I always say no. He contacted me and told me that he was finally single and that he really wants to see me. I told my boyfriend that if he was gonna do it with my cousin, then I could do it with this guy. That's when my boyfriend said no, because I had feelings for this guy. He's arguing that he has no feelings for my cousin, and that if I do it with this other guy, it would be like cheating because I do have feelings for him. Which is true. I don't know what to do, and I am so confused. I could just go behind my boyfriend's back, but part of me feels guilty. What should I do?
Am I wrong for trying to talk my friend out of taking a paternity test? My friend Nick and his wife Jessie just had a baby. I'm close friends with both of them. The baby looks just like Nick. There's no question they are related. One of Nick's friends is a bit of a weird guy, and he brainwashed Nick into wanting to take a paternity test. Nick asked my advice on how to bring up this topic with his wife Jess. Oh, you don't, you psycho. I was shocked. I thought the relationship was good and they trusted each other, and the baby looks just like Nick. I started asking Nick questions as to why he thinks Jess cheated. What did she do that made him suspicious? He admitted that she didn't do anything, but he needs the test to be certain. So I told Nick that it's a bad idea and could really hurt Jess. She had an extremely traumatic birth, the baby was huge, she didn't get an epidural, and everything ripped. I think she might even have postpartum depression. What she needs is support and love, not accusations of cheating. He kept saying that he needs this to be certain and his wife should be understanding. So I asked him how he would feel if his wife asked for a paternity test for him and Anna's, his female best friend's baby, who was born last year. He said he would be really disappointed in Jess and it would make him rethink their entire relationship, possibly even break them up. He said it's different because Jess doesn't have to spend money on and raise Anna's baby, thinking it's hers when it might not be. Nick is now mad at me for not supporting and helping him. He says that I'm a woman and I can never understand how it is to the father, and I'm not even trying to understand it, which is partially true. But I can say the same thing about him, that he is not even trying to understand how it is to be the mother, to be basically accused of cheating after such a traumatic birth. So did I step over a line? Am I the asshole? Oh my god, this guy's gonna get his ass kicked, because that's what I would do.
Storytime about the boy across the street who used to stalk me. So a little background information. My parents and I moved into a new house that was literally 5 minutes from where I used to live. But I went to private school, and almost all the other kids in my town went to the public school. So I didn't really know a lot of the kids in my town. Well, a week after we moved in, our neighbors across the street invited us to a barbecue. While we were there, I started talking to our neighbor's older son, and him and I started to get along really well. Like, in a flirty way. Their older son was a senior, I was a sophomore, and their younger son was a freshman. Well, I kind of talked to the younger son, but he was just like giving me really weird vibes. So for the next few weeks, I started hanging out with their older son a lot, and we would talk all the time. Well, the one day whenever I went over their house, it was super weird. His younger brother kept saying, "Oh, I think I know you from somewhere. Like, I swear I know you." And I'm just like, okay. Well, the one morning I was waiting outside for my mom to pick me up because she worked night shifts and she would just grab me and then take me to my school. And I saw him in his window watching me, like, for part 2. Part 2 about the boy across the street who used to stalk me. So like I said, I saw him watching me outside his window, but I didn't want to overthink it, so I was just like, no, maybe he's looking at something else. Well, this all started a month after I moved in. Well, it started happening more frequently, so then I told his older brother. We're just gonna call the younger brother Mac. So he talked to Mac and then everything was fine for a week. Just a little information real quick. For the public school, the bus would arrive at 7:40. My private school started at 7 o'clock. So my mom would come and get me at 6:15 because my school was kind of far away. So like I said, it was a week later. Every morning that I would go outside to wait for my mom, Mac would be standing on his porch watching me. Oh, but it gets worse. So one night I was in my bedroom, right? And this is like some scary movie shit. I kept seeing something run past my window. My bedroom was on the first floor. So I told my dad about it and he put cameras outside. Well, Mac's older brother told me that Mac was always interested in my life. So me being a smart-ass bitch, I told his older brother that our cameras didn't work, like for part 3. Part 3 about the boy that lived across the street who used to stalk me. So like I said, I told his older brother that our cameras didn't work anymore, knowing that he would tell Mac. Because he had it in his head for some reason that Mac wasn't obsessed with me. And the reason why I told him our cameras didn't work was because Mac was watching while the cameras were being set up outside. And after that, everything stopped. Except he would still be outside every single morning on his fucking porch watching me. So the one night while I'm sleeping, I wake up to some noise right outside my window. And my bed was on the same wall as the window, so I could see who was right outside my window, but they couldn't see me. Well, I look, and guess who the fuck it is? It's Mac trying to get inside of my fucking window. So I quietly call my dad, and it's like 3 in the morning. So I tell my dad what's going on. So he goes outside and nobody's there. Well, the next day we check the cameras. Footage of him jerking off outside my window, trying to break into my room with a fucking crowbar. Luckily, I was staying at a friend's that night. Taking pictures of me outside my window. So we showed his parents. Then we moved and they sent him to a mental hospital.
Am I wrong for embarrassing my father-in-law after I repeatedly asked him to explain his joke to me? I, 27 female, used to be an escort, a hooker, from when I was 18 until I was 23. I am not proud of it, but I also don't give an F because I did what I had to do to keep studying and a roof over my head. That's how I met my now fiance, 37 male, though he was never my client. We began to date when I was 25, and 3 or 4 months in after that, his brother-in-law exposed me. No idea how he found out, because there's no way my fiance knew, and thus we had to come clean in front of his whole family. Yes, I did that. Yes, he knows. Yes, he doesn't care. It was 2 years ago at that time. We got over it. After that, there was a span of 3 to 4 months in where my mother-in-law and some of my fiance's aunts and cousins policed their husbands when I was around. It was really weird, to be honest, because these dudes were like 40 to 60 years old and I wasn't that desperate. So my fiance shut their bullshit hard, and even when his family still gives me the side eye from time to time, we thought it was behind us. He proposed last year, and 5 months ago we found out that I was pregnant. We were really happy about it, and we told his family as soon as we knew. His sisters and younger brother were happy for us, but his mom took me aside and begged me to be honest with her and asked if it was really my fiance's child. I was taken aback, but I just rolled my eyes and said yes. She gave me some shitty speech about how she only wanted to make sure. Like, you would tell her, like, what, even if it wasn't his, you think you're gonna tell his mom, like, yeah, he doesn't know, but it's not his baby. Dummies. Well, last weekend we were at his parents with his family, and some of his friends were talking about the name, how he might look, just small talk. And my father-in-law said that he and his children have a birthmark in the inner thigh, and that even his grandchildren, one of my sister-in-law's kids too, got them. So our baby might too. And then he said, but how can we know from who he got it? It may as well be from me, my boy, or my brothers. And he and his brothers began to laugh. My fiance got mad, and before he could say anything, I said, I don't get it. And my father-in-law said, yeah, because it runs in the family. And I said, I don't get it. Why would he get it from you? And he began to get nervous and said, because, you know, it's just a joke. And I said, but I don't get it, and you all laugh. So explain. It got to the point that some of his friends said, hey, it's not funny. So he excused himself and left. Later, my fiance's brother-in-law came to me and said that I was wrong for embarrassing him like that in his own house, and that I knew what the joke was about, and because of my past, I shouldn't be surprised. Now they're all demanding that I apologize to my father-in-law. Hell no, don't you do it. Get out of here. Oh my, yuck. Yuck. I'm so sorry you have to go through yuck.
Story time about how I've been in love with my best friend for 6 years. This is not my story time. It's sending me an Instagram. Let's call my best friend Rick. Rick and I have known each other since we were 3 years old. We're actually neighbors and we went to the same school, grew up at the same time, and we did everything together as kids. Most people thought we were siblings. His mom became my mom's best friend, and our parents would go to dinner almost every single week. Growing up, we treated each other like siblings. He always watched out for me and had my back when we were in school. But things started to change when we got into high school. Rick started dating a lot of the girls in school. Suddenly, I started to get really jealous. Instead of spending time with me, he would start spending time with his new girlfriends, duh. But we would always go to school together, and instead, he started dropping off and picking up his own girlfriend. So I didn't have a ride to school. His girlfriend asked me if I'm in love with him. I actually froze and didn't say anything. Then she got right up in my face and asked me again. I answered no and basically ran away from the party. When I got home, I got a text from Rick asking me if I was okay. I told him I was just tired and I wasn't having fun at the party. Then he sends me a screenshot of messages his girlfriend sent him. In the messages, she told him that she thought I was in love with him and that she could tell just by the way that I looked at him. He told her there was no way and that I was just a sister to him. He actually thought it was hilarious that she would think that. God, if only he knew that it was true. He then told me that he needed to stay away from me just to not make her jealous. This hurt me so much. He was choosing her over me. She actually ended up cheating on him and they broke up. A few years passed by and during that time I dated other people, but I couldn't stop thinking about Rick. Guess what I did? I moved 2 cities away just to avoid him. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how I've been in love with my best friend for 6 years. After I moved away just to try to forget him, it did not work. I just couldn't stop thinking about him. After a year, I moved back to my hometown. I decided I would be honest with Rick and tell him how I really feel about him. Well, it's been a year since I moved home and I still haven't told him anything. Girls fall over themselves just to try to date him. And everyone he's ever dated literally looks like a model. And I know that I can't compete with that. Now, I know I'm not ugly or anything, but I'm definitely not the model type. I decided to open up to Rick's mom and I told her how I felt. She's actually really happy that I told her the truth. And she told me that she always suspected it. She also told me she would love Rick and I to date. I told her that I just didn't have the courage to tell him how I really felt. I mean, imagine you going up to your crush and telling them that you like them. It's so hard. She also told me Rick wants to get married soon and finally settle down. Apparently he's sick of dating around. So basically he's looking for a wife. I don't want to sit on the sidelines and watch him with somebody else the rest of my life. I just can't muster up the courage to tell him. Rick and I had dinner a few nights ago and he told me that he actually likes someone from his job. I almost started crying right then and there in front of him. I'm hoping he doesn't ask her out. I want to find a way to tell him without me dying of embarrassment. If you have any ideas, please let me know. Or maybe I just shouldn't tell him at all. Maybe I can find someone else. What do you think? Is it okay that my boyfriend insists on me washing myself before any sexy time? My boyfriend and I have been together for 6 months, but we've broken up 4 times. Altogether, we've probably only spent about 3 months together. He pursued me really hard. We met at work, and the first day we met, he asked me out. I kept saying no because I really don't want to focus on guys right now. I have a really good career in fashion, so dating was not in my plans. Kept on insisting and doing very nice things for me, like he would bring me my favorite coffee or bring me my favorite foods. I finally said yes when he brought me a basket full of my favorite snacks from Whole Foods. He told me that he basically went around asking everyone what they saw me eating, and then he went to Whole Foods and bought everything and made a basket for me. I was really flattered, so when he asked me out again, I said yes. I thought maybe he'd be a really kind and just considerate guy, but things are not like that. We went on a total of 5 dates before anything happened. When it finally came time to doing it, we were at my apartment and he insisted that I go take a shower. When I asked him why, he said he prefers for everything to be clean. Obviously, I got offended and said, I am clean. He then rolled his eyes and said, okay, never mind. And then we did it. Part 2 is up. Is it okay that my boyfriend insists that I wash myself before any sexy time? When he told me he wanted me to be clean, I said I am clean. So we proceeded to do it. Everything was pretty normal after that. He was really affectionate and kept complimenting me. A few days later, it was going to be our second time. But before anything starts to happen, he once again asked me to go take a shower. I asked him if I smelled bad or something, and he said, no, I just think that you should take a shower. I decided to keep my cool and I went and took a shower. But the routine stuck. Every single time we were going to do anything, he would ask me to go take a shower. Now I wonder what you might be thinking. No, I do not smell bad. I usually take 2 showers a day anyway. One in the morning after working out, and then one at night before getting into bed. So I know I don't smell bad. But now it's a total inconvenience. Every time we want to do it, he asks me to go take a shower, even if I'm dressed, even if I have makeup on. So I started avoiding it at all costs. Anytime he would ask me to do it, I would just say no. Because of this, we actually broke up for 2 months. When we got back together, it was the same exact thing. Once again, I was taking a shower every single time. Part 3 is it okay that my boyfriend insists on me washing myself before any sexy time? I actually even began associating sexy time with being dirty. Because he would insist so much, I would actually start to feel shame. I knew that I was clean and I washed myself multiple times a day, even when I knew I wasn't going to see him. I decided to reach out to an ex-girlfriend of his on Instagram, and I asked her if she had the same problem with him. And she proceeded to send me paragraphs and paragraphs of all the things that he made her do. Not only would he make her shower before sexy time, but he would make her brush her teeth before kissing and fully removing her makeup too. I told her that my theory was that he must have had a bad experience with some other girl. Then she told me her theory, that he likes being in control, and that the only reason he asked us to do all these things was so that he could feel in control. By the way, her and I are now friends, so here's what I did. The next time I saw my boyfriend, I asked him to take a shower. And guess what? He got totally offended. I pulled him up on the fact that he makes me shower every single time, and he said that I should be happy to do whatever it takes to make him happy. Now I refuse to take a shower whenever he wants me to. And because of that, he's always in a bad mood. He even told my best friend that I wasn't a considerate girlfriend. How dare he complain to her? Now here's the thing. I'm very attracted to him and I feel like I'm falling in love with him, but this is the only thing that's holding me back. He even mentioned moving in together. What should I do?
Story time about the guy who pretended to be gay in high school to get closer to all the girls. So it was the first day of my freshman year, and at lunch this guy came and sat with me and my friends. And we were super confused because he was like one of the popular boys. And we were like, oh, why aren't you sitting with your friends? And he's like, oh, because ever since I came out as gay, they don't want to be friends with me anymore and they're being super mean to me. So we felt really bad and we started getting to know him, and he was actually a really cool person. So we started inviting him to our sleepovers and everything like that. And because he was gay, we felt really comfortable getting dressed around him, talking about things that we wouldn't talk about in front of anybody. So like 2 months go past, and at this point he knows so much about us, like stuff that nobody else knew. Like, he even knew that one of my friends was born with both private parts, which is something that she never told anybody except for me and the girls in my friend group. Well, we're all on FaceTime the one day, and my friend goes, oh, have you ever seen boobs before? And he goes, no. So we all lift up our shirt like for part 2. Okay, part 2 about the guy who pretended to be gay in high school to get closer to all the girls. So like I said, we all lift up our shirts, and because we were on FaceTime, we couldn't see if he screenshotted anything. And then the one night we were having a sleepover, and he was really upset that night because apparently the popular boys were making fun of him. Because the only reason why he was gay is because he couldn't get with any girls. So me and my friends thought of a solution, but like we were just trying to be nice. And now looking on it, that is the dumbest shit that we've ever done. And we're all like, oh, well, why don't you just say that you did the nasty with all of us? And he was like, well, I don't think they'll believe it, even if you guys said, yeah, you did do it. So we were like, okay, then let's do it for real. So that night, we did the nasty, all 5 of us. So that morning, we all wake up and he's literally gone. Like, he didn't wake us up to say goodbye, which wasn't normal. So the weekend goes past. Monday, we go to school. And in the morning, my friends and I have time to walk around and everybody's just staring at us like for part 3. Part 3 about the guy who pretended to be gay to get closer to all the girls. So like I said, we got to school and everybody's just looking at us. And all of a sudden we get tagged in this Instagram account. And there's a video of all 5 of us doing the nasty in my bedroom. There's pictures of me and my friends getting undressed. And there's a screenshot of the FaceTime where we all showed our boobs. And under the post, he was exposing a bunch of shit about us. And my one best friend was literally crying so hard because everybody now knew that she was born with like both parts. And also after gym class, we would just tell him to come in the locker room, and the teacher didn't care because he was gay. So there were also a bunch of pictures of other girls on there too. I'm not even going to talk about the legal trouble, but my parents made me move schools because they cared about my image and they didn't want me hanging out with any of those friends anymore. He got expelled. The teacher got fired for that bullshit. So that just ruined having a gay best friend for me. Oh, also my parents saw me have a foursome in my bedroom.
My ex-husband, 35, and I, 33, got separated 7 months ago. We have shared custody of our 14-year-old son. My son struggled to accept the separation and adopt the new normal. I put him in therapy suggested by my brother-in-law, his dad's brother and favorite uncle. I noticed my ex-husband has been coming over a lot to yell at me and start fights about our son, saying stuff like how our son should live with him full time. At first, I had no idea what his problem was until my son told me that he's suspecting his therapist to be giving my ex-husband information about the sessions. Because my ex-husband has brought up many things my son talked about in therapy, but ex was trying to deflect the blame. I did some digging and my son's suspicions had been confirmed. I felt so incredibly violated on his behalf. I went to confront his therapist and he denied, saying that my ex-husband came to him with concerns and basically wanted to know what my son said in the sessions out of concern. I had a big argument with him and told him that I would be reporting him for betraying my son's trust and violating him like that, even though this information was going to his dad, aka family. To me, that's still wrong. Apparently, he, therapist, told my ex-husband about me reporting him, and my ex-husband didn't say anything nor come over to fight with me. However, he must have told my brother-in-law, because my brother-in-law visited and told me that I overreacted, and if I report my son's therapist, then I'll cause more damage because my son's got used to this one. When I pointed out how my ex-husband could have gathered and twisted information to screw me over in custody, he told me that I was doing this for my own selfish reasons and to cover my own ass. He said that I clearly don't have my son's best interests at heart to think that that's okay. I got mad and told him to leave after he tried to talk to my son into stopping me from reporting his buddy therapist. I yelled at him that clearly he, my ex-husband, and his buddy therapist were in this together. He got offended and called me delusional and walked out. The family is telling me to let it go and just find another therapist instead of reporting. Am I the asshole for reporting my son's therapist for giving my ex-husband information about the sessions? Storytime about when I punched my racist brother-in-law and sent him to the hospital, then refused to pay the bill. I, 28, have been dating my girlfriend, 28, for a few years now, and between just the two of us, everything is perfectly fine. The only problem that we do have is her immediate family, parents and siblings. I'm white and originally Dutch, she's originally Japanese. Between us, we don't care, but her family does. Especially at first, her family was against her dating a white boy. She ignored them, and for the most part, so did I. Over the few years, her father has started to warm up to me slowly, but her mother and brother still dislike me an awful lot. The mom just gives me the silent treatment most of the time, but her brother is sometimes downright racist towards me, my family, he never met them, and culture. A couple of days ago, we were at the in-laws' place for dinner in an attempt, number 100 it feels like, to find some mutual respect. Dad-in-law was fine with it and talked to me, mother-in-law was ignoring me half the time, and brother-in-law gave me angry stares. After a while, he started to go off on racist tirade against me and all you white people, and I had enough of it. I stood up for myself, and my girlfriend backed me up. Eventually, brother-in-law stood up and walked to me and my girlfriend. In a reflex, I stood up as well. After some insults in Japanese, I'm learning the language but have no idea what he said. My girlfriend told him to fuck off. He then slapped her in the face and spat in mine. He didn't slap her hard, but hard enough to be audible. Now, I'm at least a full head taller than him and almost twice as broad, so when I punched him in the face, he was immediately knocked out. I left my girlfriend in the tow. I was shaking and couldn't drive, so she drove us home while fully assuring me that she's on my side. Yesterday, I received a message from the in-laws and now they demand I pay the hospital bill since I apparently fractured his cheekbone. I have no intention to pay it, and when my girlfriend read it, she was also like, fuck that. I'm not sure what to do when I feel like shit now, especially since I was starting to actually get along well with her father. The progress seems to be undone now. Am I the asshole for refusing to foster a replacement because she's a Christian? My wife and I raised her sister, who still lives with us, and we have 3 foster children. When we started fostering, we made it very clear to the agency that we are a non-religious home. We are not willing to facilitate any religious practices, nor do we allow any religious items in the house. At the time, they were glad to have anyone taking older children, and there were many children that were stoked to be in a religion-free household, so there were no issues. While I realize that makes us look like those kinds of atheists, this isn't because we want to be special or edgy. My wife and I both have severe religious trauma. I don't mean that in a my parents took me to church and it was boring way, but in a I had episodes that ended with me in a psych ward as a teenager way. I was diagnosed with a panic disorder and later CPTSD. Part of my mental health treatment is avoiding exposure as much as possible. My wife had never ended up hospitalized over her trauma, but she has also had professional help who advised her to have similar limits. We got a call a few weeks ago for what would be child 4. Thing is, that child is a devout Christian. We told the caseworker that we can't take her due to our policy. She begged us to because they can't find homes and said that the girls' church would even bus her to services so we wouldn't have to do anything, which is a hard no. Absolutely not can any church, especially an SBC church, have our home address, let alone park themselves here multiple times a week. Not to mention that they would never leave the rest of us alone. Our other children don't deserve to deal with that, and neither do we. Now she started threatening to remove our current fosters because we're violating freedom of religion by not taking this child. My wife thinks that maybe we should take her to keep the other kids, but I don't think so. Our kids came to our house because they needed a safe space from these kinds of people and their ideas. This is absolutely not acceptable. I have a hard time believing they want to have to suddenly find a new place for 3 more kids when they have such a problem placing just one already anyway. I'm willing to take the gamble.
Storytime about how my stepdad made my mom choose between him and my brothers. So a little background information, I was 13 years old and in 7th grade, and I had 2 older brothers, Josh and Alex, who were twins, and they were both 4 years older than me. Whenever I was 3, my dad left my mom for his dentist, and we never saw him again because he decided to start a whole new family with them. Now, because of that, my older brothers always felt like they had a specific role in my family, especially because the guys that my mom brought home, they would only last a week. Well, finally, my mom met this guy who's really nice, and she decided that she was going to get married to him, but he despised my older brothers. Mainly because before he moved in with us, my mom would not depend on him for anything. Anything that needed taken care of around the house, my brothers would do it. And we didn't have too much money while this guy was loaded. Like the one time my mom and this guy, who we're gonna call Jerry, got into a fight. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my stepdad made my mom choose between him or my brothers. So like I said, my mom and Jerry got into this one fight, and it's a super long story, but pretty much all it made Jerry realize was that he did not have authority over my mother, and she didn't have to depend on him for anything because my brothers would always be there for her. Now, Alex was more of the shy one. Meanwhile, Josh was super hot-headed and didn't deal with anybody's bullshit. And fast forward, my mom and Jerry move in together. That's when we realized that Jerry was super abusive. And Jerry knew that he could pick on Alex whenever he wanted because he wasn't going to do shit. And most of the time, Josh wasn't home because he literally hated Jerry. The one time Alex came home and he did really bad on this one test. And Jerry was like, oh, he needs to learn discipline, blah, blah, blah. The next day, we all were sitting down for breakfast and we saw Alex come downstairs with a black eye. And that's whenever Josh flipped the fuck out. He grabbed Jerry, ripped him across the fucking table, and threatened him with a kitchen knife. And my mom called the cops, like for part 3. Part 3 about how my stepdad made my mom choose between him or my brothers. So like I said he needed to teach some discipline, so he literally beat the shit out of Alex. And we all didn't know until he came downstairs the one morning for breakfast. And that's whenever Josh flipped the hell out. He threatened Jerry with a knife. After that, my mom called the cops. I didn't really do anything but try to de-escalate the situation. But after that, Jerry called a family meeting down to the kitchen table. And he was like, I will not deal with this level of disrespect in this house. He was like, you need to choose between me or them. She was like, well, I'm not going to choose between you or my kids. And he was like, well, then you need to choose them leaving the house. They're about to be 18. They can leave and get their own place. So my mom ended up choosing Jerry because Jerry had a lot of money. And my brothers weren't really that mad about it because it got them out of the house. And my mom would send them a lot of money every month. And Jerry never knew about it. But now instead of him being abusive towards my brothers, he's way more abusive towards my mom.
My mom was once accused of starving me by a random old lady on the sidewalk. That night, my mom went home and broke down into tears. I was in fact very well fed, but I had a high metabolism and active lifestyle, and I was also a picky eater. But I was happy, energetic, and I would actually eat a lot without putting on any weight. Apparently from the outside with a tiny frame, I looked like I was malnourished. I realized early on in high school that teens would call me cocky when I opened up about my struggles with weight gain. When I told them I was trying to eat more in fear of being too skinny, I was told, I wish I had that problem. Unfortunately, in our society, if you're underweight, you get this weird pass or even envy. But if you're overweight, you're chastised. The reality is, being too underweight or overweight is never healthy, and you can be insecure either way. I later developed a major insecurity about being too skinny. I began to overeat on purpose. It's important to know that everyone has their own demons, and while their struggles may seem insignificant to you, it is significant to them. There are real consequences to brushing off their issues because you might have the opposite problem, and realize that what everyone is trying to do is reach the same goal, a body we can feel confident, healthy, and proud of.
Can you work out what really happened here? A man comes home from a long day at work and he says, "Honey, I'm home." And from the bedroom he hears his wife shout, "Hi sweetie, the microwave is on and cooking a chicken dinner. Could you go and check the microwave and tell me how much time is left?" The man immediately runs out the door across the street and he calls the police, telling them that his wife is in danger. Why would he do that, and how would he know? Let me know in the comments if you can solve this mystery.
Have you let anyone borrow your phone before? One woman let her son borrow her phone, but she could have never expected the terrifying things she saw after she got her phone back. So this woman got her new phone and she put it on the kitchen counter and went to watch some TV. That's when her son came in and asked if he could borrow the phone to play with it. The woman didn't think much of it at first, so she agreed, but she could have never known that this would lead to a terrifying discovery. When it was nighttime, she got ready to tuck her son into bed, so she went upstairs to his room, but he wasn't there. Then she ran over to her room and saw him sleeping on her bed with the new phone in his hand. She felt relieved, so she took her phone back and started looking through it. At first, nothing was out of the ordinary. She saw her background had changed, but it wasn't until she saw the photos that she found the horrifying surprise. There were many new photos on her phone that her son took around the house, the front door, the kitchen, and even photos of her taken from the back when she was watching TV. She started deleting these photos until the last one caught her eye. Instantly, she turned around, terrified. It was a photo of her son sleeping in her bed, but it was taken by someone else, someone standing above him, and on the edge of the photo was half of a stranger's face.
My brother said that he saw a ghost as a kid, but a couple years later, I found out what he really saw. So I found this really creepy story on Reddit that I want to share with you guys today, and I honestly wish we would do neon clown looks all year long. So I was about 7 years old while my brother was about 10. It was well past our bedtime when my mom woke up off the couch to put us to bed. Our dad worked construction out of town back then, so it was just the three of us at the house for weeks at a time. Upstairs and immediately to the right was our parents' bedroom, and going left put you in the middle of the hallway. Taking left down this hallway led to my brother's room, and on the very opposite end was my room, which was also across the hall from the upstairs bathroom, and at either end of the hallway are window doors that we always kept locked and rarely used. The door on my end led to a balcony that overlooked the front yard, and the door on my brother's end opened to the back porch. And both my brother and my mom had a habit of waking up in the middle of the night to go use the restroom. I only knew this because I was a light sleeper. This night, however, my brother stopped on his way to his room and came back towards the bathroom. He said that he's gonna pee before he goes to bed because the last few nights he's been too afraid to walk to the bathroom, and says that he keeps seeing a man wearing stripes at the end of the hallway. Okay, head over to the next part. So my brother told me that he kept seeing a man wearing stripes at the end of the hallway at night. I'm not sure if my mom wrote it off as my brother telling ghost stories to try to scare me, or if she was just half asleep and didn't catch it, but she didn't react at all to my brother's confession. I, on the other hand, was completely terrified by this statement. The fear of seeing a ghost like that at the end of the hallway or through the windows is the reason I started running from the stairs to my bedroom at night. We've all been there. Well, years later, when I was about 18, my mom and I were having a conversation in our car about a dog we had for a very short time when I was little. We were sharing stories about Max's tendency to destroy shoes and other unruly behaviors whenever my mom blurted out, "Do you remember that time I opened the front door for the cops and Max ran inside to the kitchen and started tearing open that big bag of dog food we had?" This really caught me by surprise because in all the years that I'd lived in that house, we had never once called the cops. I asked her what she was talking about and she looked at me surprised as if I had just revealed something by accident. She goes, "Oh, that's right. I never told you because you were too young at the time." One night I woke up because I was hearing noises outside my window, and when I looked, I saw a man staring into my bedroom. She went on to describe how turning on the lights caused him to take off running and how she grabbed my dad's pistol before calling the cops. She said, "I can't remember all the details they gave when they showed up. Tall white male, wearing a striped shirt and jeans, short dark hair, something like that." They said that it matched the description for a man they were looking for in the area. It turns out he had escaped from jail on a murder charge. Now, I know it sounds so obvious hearing those two stories back to back, but it wasn't until a few years ago in my mid-20s that I pieced everything together, that my brother had unknowingly warned us about a murderer who spent multiple nights casing our home. Damn. Let me know what y'all's thoughts are in the comments.
This is what they meant when they said, don't talk to strangers. In the early 1900s, a 10-year-old boy was playing in the woods when a tall man appeared and asked if he wanted to come back to his cabin for dinner. Totally caught off guard, the boy reluctantly agrees and begins walking. When they get to the cabin, the boy is relieved when he sees Paul, a family friend, sitting on the porch, so the boy happily goes inside. After they eat, the boy says thank you to the strange tall man, says bye to Paul, and then he leaves. He had only walked a few steps when he sees his family, along with Paul, running up the path towards him, frantically asking if he was okay. Confused, the boy says, I'm just fine, and he looks at Paul and he's like, why didn't you tell them I was with you at the cabin? And he points over his shoulder. Paul glances over the boy's shoulder and then narrows his eyes and says, you were kidnapped by a cult 3 days ago. No one's seen you. Terrified, the boy turns around to look at the cabin he just came from, and it's gone. All he sees is a dark forest that stretches for miles.
Am I the asshole for choosing to not get involved when my daughter threw away my wife's shampoo collection? I, 39, got married to my wife, Nellie, 36 months ago. Nellie and my daughter, 16, Megan, have never gotten along. They have lots of disagreements and have nothing in common, and it was obvious since the first day they met. I thought it would get better, but ever since we moved in together, it's gotten worse. Megan will throw her stuff away, and it's been basically a mouse and cat game. Nellie has special shampoo and conditioner for her sensitive hair, and she put them in the bathroom. Megan threw them away, saying she had no right to store them in the bathroom because it's not her house. Am I the asshole for choosing not to get involved when my daughter threw away my wife's shampoo collection? To keep the peace, I asked Nellie to just keep her stuff in the bedroom and take it with her whenever she wants to take a shower. She ended up agreeing, and last night Nellie took a shower and forgot her hair products in the bathroom. Megan ended up going in there and the shampoo collection was gone. Nellie freaked out and then they had a fight after Megan told her she dumped them out and she gave her a warning. Nellie broke down and I said I wanted to stay out of it, but she blew up at me. She said I keep letting Megan get away with bad attitude and unjustified behavior. I told her she should have been more careful. Am I the asshole for yelling at my husband and mother-in-law and not letting them into the delivery room? My 29 female, husband 32 male, and I have recently had a baby girl. By recently, I mean literally last night. A few weeks ago, I was invited to dinner at my mother-in-law's home. She told me she had something important to discuss, and I knew exactly what was coming. She held my hand and said, we've been talking, and we think it would be best if I replaced your mother in the delivery room. I said I'm sorry, but my mother-in-law has already been invited, and I'm not comfortable having her there. She then squeezed my hand tighter, saying it's not just up to me. Am I the asshole for yelling at my husband and mother-in-law and not letting them into the delivery room? Mother-in-law's never been the nicest and would always make snide remarks about my weight and skin color. I said no, it's my choice, and the subject was dropped. When we got home, my husband blew up at me and said it's just as much his decision, but I disagree. He said fine, and yesterday I went into labor. After calling my husband, I called my mom, who was shocked because my husband said I didn't want her there. My husband arrived with mother-in-law, and I completely lost it and yelled at him for telling my mom not to come. He then shouted at me for not letting him bring his mother, and I told him I don't want to see him or his mother ever again.
This is the terrifying story about the people in the pool. This story is about these parents who moved into a new house with their son, and the backyard had this in-ground pool, but their son for some reason refused to go near it. And they were really sad about this because one of the reasons why they bought the house was because their son loved swimming. And whenever they asked him why he was so afraid, he would say that he didn't like the fact that there were people standing in the pool. And they were obviously confused by this because they were the only ones there, but the boy kept saying there were too many people in the pool. They began to get concerned
concerned that there was maybe something wrong with their son's health because he was seeing things that they couldn't. And he was so afraid of the backyard that he was constantly having these night terrors. So they sent him away to stay with his grandmother for a few weeks. And the first night that their son was away, the mother walked into the backyard to find their cat. And as soon as she did, she stopped in her tracks because in their pool looked to be about 18 people just standing unmoving at the bottom.
If you're ever driving late at night, don't do what they did. One night, a boy and his friend were on their way to a school dance when they saw a girl on the side of the road looking lost. They stopped the car and asked if she needed a ride, and she asked them to take her home. They said that they were going to a school dance and asked if she wanted to come too. She agreed. But these boys wouldn't know yet that this girl was not an average hitchhiker. So they all got in the car and the girl sat in the back seat. After a while, the girl would constantly say that she was cold, so one of the boys gave her his jacket. They got to the dance and things were pretty normal, but what happened after would make the boys question reality. When the night was almost over, it was finally time to take the girl home. When they almost arrived, the girl told them where she lived but told them to drop her off close by so she can walk the rest of the way. So that's what they did. But after the girl walked away, the boy who let her borrow his jacket realized that he never asked for his jacket back. His friend said that they could just come back tomorrow for it. The next morning they came back expecting to get the jacket and leave, but things were not so simple. They came up to the girl's house and knocked on the door, but they were shocked at what they discovered as soon as the door opened. Follow for part 2. This is why you should not listen to your teacher. Once something terrifying happened to Sophia when she got to school. She went to class as usual when her teacher burst into the room and said, "Sophia, I have some bad news." She was shocked and embarrassed to be called out like that in front of her whole class. Her teacher then said, "Get your things. I just got off the phone with your father. He said your mom was in a horrible accident and he's gonna pick you up now and take you to the hospital." Sophia instantly froze in horror. She tried to explain, but her teacher kept interrupting her. "Why are you just standing around? Get your things now." But Sophia wouldn't move. She knew something wasn't right. She said, "I don't have a father. He passed away long ago and I never got to meet him. I was raised by a single mother all my life." To this day, Sophia still doesn't know who that man was claiming to be her father and what he planned to do if she had gone with him.
Here's a story time about when I made way more money than he was. I hated the apartment we lived in because I would wake up with roaches in my hair, so I decided to get a second serving job. When I asked him to get a second job as well, he said no because he was very happy at his job. Part 2 is up. Part 2. So I asked my fiance if he could get a second job to help me out with the bill. He said no. I would tell my mom and sisters about the situation and they would tell me that he should definitely be helping me out more, and I just would make up excuses for him, and I just thought it's okay, he can work at the movie theater and I will work my 2 jobs. At this point I was paying for most of the rent, most of the bills, and his student school loans. Owed $20,000, you guys, and I was paying for all of that. I even got a 3rd job because I wanted to save up to move out of that crappy apartment. Finally I got hired at the strip club as a cocktail waitress and I was able to quit all of my other jobs. My ex-fiance was definitely happy with the amount of money I was making at the strip club. Of course, he felt absolutely no pressure to get a new job and help me out. I finally put my foot down and told him we were moving to a better apartment because I was not happy in the apartment we were in. I told him he had no right to say no because I was the one paying for everything. We found the perfect apartment and I loved it. It was absolutely beautiful and I felt so at home there. Then one night I was sexually assaulted at the strip club. Of course, I was really affected by it. At first he was supportive, but after a few days he basically told me to get over it. 3. When he told me to just get over the sexual assault that I experienced at the strip club, I was shocked. I couldn't believe that the man I was about to marry would be so insensitive. And then I just started realizing, wait, I am paying for everything. I pay for your bills, I pay for your rent, I pay for your student loans, and you're here telling me to just get over this sexual assault. It was like someone had put a mirror to my face and was showing me the truth. The final straw was when I told him I wanted to quit the strip club because I didn't want to be in that environment and I didn't want to see the man that had sexually assaulted me again. He said, absolutely not, you can't quit, the money is too good. And that's when I broke up with him. I told him that I couldn't be with someone who didn't care enough about me and only really cared about the money and to be kept. He was so comfortable with me paying for everything and him just chilling at a job where he got paid $8 an hour while I was busting my butt every single night. He told me I would never find anyone better than him. The breakup was amicable, thank God. He didn't stress me out or anything. He kind of said, you know, you'll be back. Of course I never went back. Know your worth and be with someone who actually cares about you.